Yay! Tire gluing! Whee! You can tell I'm excited. My favorite part of the whole job here. The foams came pre-installed in mine. If they're not, go ahead and put them in. It should look like this with the foams inside. Hold on here, I'm sorry. We'll get you some more light. Okay. And we're working, luckily today, with black on black. There's many different types of tire glue out there. I don't suggest using regular CA glue. I would suggest using a tire glue, and it has rubber in it. Since we're working on black and black, I'm using black tire glue. It just seems to work better for me, and it also is a little bit more invisible because it is black on black. First thing you're going to want to do is use denatured alcohol or good old soap and water, and you're going to want to clean off all the areas in here where we're going to glue. They do have mold greases on them, and the same with the tires. You're going to want to make sure that this big groove is clean, as well as the little groove around in this area, and it's going to make it stick a lot better. Good old soap and water works. Denatured alcohol, I think, works better, but that is your choice. So these tires doesn't matter, they're a unidirectional tire, so it doesn't matter which way you glue them on. So we're going to take our wheel and press it on in all the way through, like so. And then in the back, we're going to go ahead and push the tire on. It's a good idea to kind of test fit it first. I like to do that. It just makes sure that everything is going to fit together. Make sure there's no big gaps around the edges here. You're going to have to fiddle with it until it all falls into place. And you're going to do the same on the front. Just make sure it all fits together. You can see how there are no big gaps in between the wheel and the tire. Okay, I like to take a 3-step process on this. First thing I'm going to do once we're glad everything fits together is go ahead and pull this tire down so that it exposes this portion right here on the wheel. You can see there's it's almost a ladder effect. There's a deep groove, and then there's a shallow groove, and then there's the front of the wheel. We're going to put a generous amount of the tire glue all the way around in the deep groove and on this little shoulder here. And it takes a minute. I've also cut a hole into my glue bottle a little bit larger than I would with a 10th scale tire. And you have to do this somewhat quickly because you don't want it all to get dried up. And I'm putting a generous amount in the groove and then also on that little shoulder. You don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to be stingy with the glue. I'm going to make sure it goes all the way around. We're going to see if one bottle is actually enough for this project. I'm hoping that it is. So you have 4 big tires. They do make bead locks, but that's not what the kit came with. Okay, so we're all the way around on that. Now that this is in the down position, I'm just going to flick this, kind of pull back on the tire, and it settles back up into those grooves. You do have to play with it because there is glue in there. And I just kind of pinch it along into place. Again, making sure that there's no big gaps in between the wheel and the tire. And that is the front side. And as you can see, that's what it should look like. There's no big gaps. There's little gaps, but not a big ones. If there was a big gap, you'd be able to see a big gap like that, and that's not what you want. You're going to set these aside. Go ahead and do the other 3. Set it aside and let it dry. And then we'll address the bottom of the tire here in a minute. Just want to make sure it's all nice and even. It's not going to be perfect, but you want to make sure that they're all nice and even. This is one I glued a few minutes ago, and it is still a little bit on the wet side drying, so we will set that aside and we'll do the other ones, and we'll be right back and we'll address the back of the tires. Okay, now that the fronts are fairly dry, we're going to start on the back. We're basically going to do the same thing, except for there's no ridge on here. There's just one big fat channel to fill up with glue. I do want to thank and give thanks where it's needed, and that's to my local hobby shop. Oop, keep forgetting to turn the extra light on here. Okay, and that's to my local hobby shop, which is Jake's Performance Hobbies, or jphracing.com. He's our local hobby shop here in Northern California in the Sonoma County area, and he keeps an extremely well-stocked store. Does mail order as well, but that's one of the only places around that actually carries the black rubber tire glue. So we're going to generously apply the glue to this inner groove. And I lied to you, there's not 4 tires, there's 5. Because this one does have a spare, which is pretty darn cool. And again, I'm using the tip of this to spread the glue into the groove, and I'm being very generous with it. I hope we have enough with one bottle. And then I'm going to come in and set the tire down into that groove so that there's no big gaps. Again, you can see that there's not a lot of gaps around there. And it's just a matter of pulling it in and pulling it out and working with it until it just sets right down in there. Once it sets in, it's pretty much going to set all the way around. And we're going to go ahead and let that dry. While we're doing that, let's skip ahead and do my third part of what I like to do. And that is once they're dry on the front and the rear, I like to come back and add a little bit, because we can peel that back and you can see that it is glued in, but there's a little area here that could actually use some glue, because when the tire rolls, that likes to peel out like that. And if we put some glue on there, it just kind of makes me feel warm and fuzzy. So what I'm going to do is just kind of push down on that to expose it. And not a whole bunch, because this is where it can get messy. This rubber glue is thick, the black stuff. So I just kind of like to pull down and just put an extra little bit on there as we go around. And it can get a little messy. That's why I like this black stuff with black wheels and black tires. You can see that this is rubber and it kind of globs rather than flowing. And it's gap filling, and that's what I like about it too. Also, as you're pulling down here, you can tell if you're completely glued in the inner portion. And if you're not, you can squeeze a little bit more glue in there. Looks like I did a pretty good job on this one. Sorry about being off camera there. Now I can see I've gone all the way around. I'm very gently just going to pinch that until I see some of the glue seep up in there. And that way I know that the gaps are filled. There we go. As soon as the back dries, we're going to go ahead and do the same on the rear. Alright, that's it for tire gluing. Have fun. You got 5 of them. I haven't finished all of these, so I'm not quite sure yet if one little bottle of glue is going to do, but it's going to be close. So get to gluing.